Well, hello everybody in Facebook land. Here we are with another Facebook Live. Really enjoying this week. And man, a lot has happened this week. We had most of my week. How was your week? But my week was taken up largely with TEDx Wilmington, which was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun meeting people from all over the world. It's always fun to work with a great volunteer team. It's great to work with my friend Ajit George, who just really brings a level of elegance and professionalism and something far, far higher than that. But how was your week? What we're going to do right now, we're going to have a little Friday reflection time because it's so important that we take time to put pause, like I have right here, just hit pause on all the crazy going on your life. And as our lives get nuttier and nuttier, and as the blend between the false balance between work over here and play over here gets completely bled into so that there is no way to rip it apart and no way to be in balance, it is very important that we actually take time to hit that pause button. Okay, now don't hit the pause button on me because then you won't be able to hear what I'm saying to you right now. But it is important to hit that pause button because that's the only way. Those of you that remember that movie, Groundhog Day, with Bill Murray, who are you? Okay, I watched that movie in 1991 when it came out, or 92, and I said, I'm not going to watch that movie again for at least 10 years because I feel like I watched that movie 20 times because you are literally watching about 40 or 50 of Bill Murray's identical dates. Now, what was the one thing that kept Bill Murray from completely checking out of life, even though he did? I mean, there were a couple of times when he gave up and he couldn't get out. It was just a nightmare. And it started every morning at 5:30 a.m. with I Got You, Babe by Sonny and Cher on that miserable alarm clock radio. You probably remember it. Oh my gosh. All right. Hit the pause button, Eric, on an 8-year-old. Why don't you send him out to surf, buddy? You're right by the ocean. You should have that one down pat, my friend. Send him out. Give him a boogie board or something. Eric lives in Uruguay, just a few blocks from the ocean. And if you want to see that is the truth, you can watch his episode of, I believe it was International House Hunters, something like that. You can actually watch his reality episode. So hitting pause is the only way that we can get off of life. Hit pause, I'm getting off of life, and we need to actually strategically check out of life so that we can really check back in with ourselves. And that's what we're talking about right now in the law of reflection, because we actually have to have a place and a time to pause in our life. HDTV, it was House Hunters International, wasn't it, Eric? I mean, it was a fun reality episode for sure. So law number 4 here in the book is the law of reflection, and it says that learning to pause will allow growth to catch up with us. And that is the only way that we're not going to go absolutely nutty, absolutely batty, living the same stuff over and over and over again. Now, what I'm going to do right now, because I've learned, unfortunately, you're hearing that noise, and that is my fan. So now it is warm enough outside that my internal fan has kicked in, and what I'm going to have to do is a little impromptu sit down here in the house, because I want to be able to repurpose the audio, and the audio does not sound too good when that blasted fan is happening. So I'm going to plug in the power cord. Hopefully this fan will turn off, and we'll be able to get back down to business here. And it looks like my power plug isn't powering. Get back in there. Get back in there. All right, come on. I'm waiting for the orange light to go on. Wait for the orange light. There it goes. Okay. So I think the lighting is okay here today. Now, one of the fun things that I did today is I looked into my memories, and I saw that there was a memory from 9 years ago in which I discuss fashion. And so I talk about fashion sense, and it's a 9-year younger version of Nathan talking about fashion. And apparently I had this new hot girlfriend named Angela, and we went out to Old Navy together. We hit pause. Okay, I didn't see the connection, but now I do. My girlfriend at the time, Angela, had said, "Hey Nathan, why don't you hit pause on your fashion life? Because you need to jump off of this train. Let's go buy you some new clothes. Let's buy you some jeans that don't look like they are 10 years old." Okay? Some nicer jeans, blue jeans. Now, the fashion is probably flashed back around again. These are not the jeans that I'm wearing. This just happens to be a very conveniently located extra pair of jeans. But she got me jeans that had color and didn't look old anymore. And why was it? It's because somebody in my life at that time, I was very, very blessed that she said, "Hey, pause the train, get off it, let's buy you some new clothes so you don't look like a complete dweeb anymore." Hey, Andrea. So Andrea is going to be joining us at 3, by the way, a little commercial break. We're going to pause and we're going to play the virtual leadership game. And a bunch of you know what that's all about. So if you'd like to jump in, we still have a couple of spots here on Zoom available. So just private message me. And if you're available at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we are going to jump right back into that. So anyway, so the law of reflection here, law number 4, quattro, okay, it says learning to pause allows the growth to catch up to you. And so it's really, really important to hit that pause. And, maybe you're like me where, you're speaking or you're about to speak, and actually it can be really tough to find that pause sometimes. So some of the things that I would recommend that you do is, this is not the card that I thought that I had, but I remember what I wrote on the card outside. I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can remember and that you can use to be able to make it a little easier for you to pause more regularly, okay? So, I am not endorsing smoking, and I'm not endorsing smoking at work. However, if I can think of if there's a benefit to that, which there really isn't, but there isn't a benefit, but there is a benefit in pausing. And those people, and my heart goes out to you if you're trying to quit smoking. But one thing about people that smoke at work is they know how to take a break. A horrible example, but isn't that true about people that smoke in the workplace? Okay, and don't send me all kinds of hate because I'm trying to be, as sensitive as I can about this, but they know how to take breaks. And what I'm saying is we need to take breaks. I need to take breaks. You need to take a break. Just take a break. So knowing that you need to take a break, that's a great step. My friend John Maxwell and Eric's friend John Maxwell, a bunch of others of us that are watching this right now, he says he has a question for us. He says, where's your thinking place? Do you have a thinking place? So it's really important. Maybe it's your bedroom closet, okay? Maybe you got 8-year-olds running all around. You got to find a little cubby hole and find a place to think. That's another thing that can work real well for you. And here's another thing. If nothing else, the dinner table can be a great place to think. If you are in a position where you are convening dinner for your family and your spouse, partner, your children, or whatever you have going on, maybe it's a business dinner or whatever, but you can learn the skill that I'm learning from John Maxwell because I've had meals with him, I should probably say meal, but in public settings, large settings, I can pluralize that and say I've had meals with him. But I'm learning how to actually convene at table nice conversations in the group. And that is a really important skill. And that's a great way to have a built-in way to pause and reflect for everybody. But what if there's something extra big? And what if there's something extra special that is coming up in your life? What if there's something going on in your life and it's coming up, and a normal pause and a normal reflection just won't do. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories that I think I wrote down here in a note right here. I'll give you one of those times when it was really critical for me to pause to prepare. And I made the pause, and I'm reflecting, and it was really, really hard to actually come up with what I needed to pause and reflect and actually prepare. And in those times, if you've ever had those times, I just want to share with you a story where it worked out really well for me, because there were some things that I had to actually experience. There were some places, just like a thinking place, in terms of a destination, though, that I had to arrive in the destination. And until I arrived at the destination, all of my preparing and all of my good intentions weren't going to work out. And this story really starts about 2 years ago. And you've heard the story before about how I went on a medical mission trip with my wife, with my brother, how I am not medical in any way, shape, or form. However, it's so critical that I be part of it. And I said to my wife, when she said to me, we should go on a medical mission trip with your brother and his friends. And I said, that's a great idea. You should go on the medical mission trip with my brother and his friends. And she said, no, we should go. And I realized that I had to go. So what the heck am I going to do? Well, fortunately, I was in a position where I could teach the Maasai tribal leaders leadership. And you've heard about that a little bit. But the important thing is rewind to about a week, 2 weeks before. And I'm like, hey, I knew I've been going on this trip for at least a month now or 2 months. It's time to prepare, Nathan. It's time to prepare. So I found a thinking spot, which is the Starbucks about a mile away from here. I'm at the Starbucks, folks, and I am hitting a blank. I'm like, God help me. Nathan help me. Universe help me. John Maxwell out there help me. Book help me. And I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting anything. And I'm doing all the things I'm telling you to do. I'm pausing. I have my thinking place. I'm reflecting. And guess what? No illumination. No revelation. And what was my challenge? I knew from being in Guatemala that my challenge wasn't to have good material. I've got all kinds of good material. But my challenge was the exact same challenge I had in Guatemala. It's the same challenge that I had in Paraguay. It's the same challenge that I had when I met my wife's cousins in India. And it's the same challenge. The challenge is stepping out of my world, out of my, privileged, well-to-do American world. Okay, and this could be controversial, but when I went to India, when I went to Tanzania, when I went to Guatemala, when I went to Paraguay, I realized that even though we have big, massive problems, and this week is a great example of it here in America, even with those problems, you go somewhere else where they're less developed, where it's not the first world, they're the developing world. And as big as our problems are here, and as big as the injustices are here in America, it's a whole lot bigger on other side of the planet. Now, you can send me hate comments and all of that, and my experience is your experience, and I understand that, and I want to be respectful of that, but I also want you to be respectful. And even if you haven't been to another part of the world where economically they're even worse off, I just want you to believe what I'm telling you. I've seen, I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen all kinds of lack of privilege. And I'm telling you, you come back to America, and even though with the injustice, with the lack of understanding, with all of the mansplaining that we have here in America from the top down, it's a lot better here than other places in the world. So the challenge that I had, all that to say, I had a connection challenge, okay? I had a connection challenge, not just connecting in English, because I had a translator, my friend Wilson, who popped in on yesterday's Facebook Live. It was so cool to see you, Wilson. But I had to not just connect in English, or Swahili, but I had to connect on their level, okay? So in order to do that, okay, not everybody not everybody wants to really talk about privilege, and actually, I don't really want to talk about privilege a whole lot because it's not comfortable for any person who has privilege or might have privilege or whatever. And even for people with privilege, just like we don't know other people's stories, you don't know their story. I mean, I think about some of the president's children. They have some privilege right now, but there is, and I can speak to this from personal experience, when you are coming from a place where you have more than other people around you, there's a real uncomfortability with that many times. So, going from that example to the example of coming from Wilmington, Delaware, which is the Brandywine area, which is in many places very, very wealthy in some spots, including the spot that I live. How in the world am I going to go to Africa off the grid? I don't even have a shower in Africa. I don't even have running water or electricity in Africa, and it was a wonderful experience, okay? I'm so privileged, okay, that when I talk to you about my story going to Africa where they don't have those things, it's almost like a status symbol, okay? That's how weird this whole dynamic is. Would you agree with that? That's how weird this whole thing is. But how am I going to connect to other people that, they don't have access to these things? How am I going to do it on their level without patronizing, without mansplaining, without, I'll call it white splaining or privilege splaining or education splaining or whatever. I used to teach graduate school people, okay? I mean, I've got all of these, I've got all of these little items stacking up in my life. And I'm like, how in the world? And back to me at the Starbucks trying to prepare to connect on their level. I'm trying to inspire them, and I'm also trying to empower them with something meaningful that is going to connect on their level. And I wasn't getting anything. And we're about to spend a lot of money. We're going to spend a lot of money that we didn't really, have a huge kitty. I mean, we were blessed to be able to go, okay? We were able to pay our bills, but, we didn't have, all the money just lying around. We kind of redelegated and reallocated. So I wanted to be prepared is my point. And I was reflecting and I was pausing and I was doing all the things that this lesson said, and I still wasn't getting anything. What do you do in those situations, okay? Well, if, like me, maybe you're a speaker or maybe you're somebody that is a humanitarian. Maybe you're not going to the other side of the world or doing something fancy like that, but maybe you're doing something that is equally worthy. Maybe you're going a county or two away, or a state or two away, or a city away, and you're helping out with Habitat, or you're doing some kind of a work project, or maybe you're helping out at the soup kitchen. But maybe, like me, they've asked you to share something. Maybe, like me, they've asked you to prepare something. And maybe, like me, you are trying to go through all the motions in the right way, doing everything that you can do, and everything that John Maxwell says to do, everything that Nathan guy says to do, and you're still not getting anywhere. Well, if that's the case for you, maybe the lesson to learn is the same lesson that I learned. Because sometimes when you've done everything that you needed to do to prepare in advance, and you don't have a lot of time, and you don't have a whole lot of awareness, and you've never done it before, my charge to you and my encouragement to you is just hit pause on your preparation. Just be present, go with the flow, and trust that it will come to you if you did everything that you needed to do to prepare. Because that's what happened for me. In my case, I drove to Dulles Airport with my wife, and we drove over there and we parked the car and we took the little shuttle in and we got on the plane and then we took the plane over. I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting anything. Then we land in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. We take a little second leg and we get laid over a little bit for a few hours, and then we took the second leg in to Kilimanjaro Airport. And man, it was beautiful. I mean, on the way back, the pilot actually flew over Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest. It's one of the 7 peaks in the world. It's the highest peak in Africa. It's around, I think, 20,000 feet. Somebody can correct me on that, but I mean, it's like 19,000 feet. It's absolutely spectacular to fly over Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm still not getting anything. Okay. And worse, we took an unspecified pit stop in a very small, I think it was Kigali, Kenya, that they didn't tell us we were taking this pit stop. And, just as a side detour, I mean, you take these international trips, you want to be careful. Go on airplane mode and don't take airplane mode off until you are in the right country that you arranged to have your data plan on. Because when we stopped in Kigali, Kenya, our phones started sucking up data, and it was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for just a few megabytes. And it was a little bit of a racket, let me tell you. So anyway, fast forward, I'm finally on the ground. Now, unfortunately, my little brother almost gets like hauled into customs because he was in charge. My little brother, the pharmacist, we had all of these, all of this stuff to bring into the country. They were legal medications and first aid supplies, and I don't want to say anything negative, but let's just say it was a little difficult getting. I'm the big brother, and I felt like the sons of Jacob in the Bible when the little brother gets thrown in jail. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I need to do here to kick in here and keep the family together? So fortunately, my brother's out of the customs. He's, we're all loaded up and we're meeting our new friend, and we are starting to drive. And pretty soon we're on dirt roads. Pretty soon we are out of civilization. We are off the grid, and we keep going and going and going. And I'm just sitting around. The trees look different. The scenery looks different. The African dirt is this rich, deep, dark brown color. It is rich. There are massive rivets in the earth. And I mean, we have gutters in America here. Some of our gutters I thought were deep, but I just saw gutters, natural ravines for the flow of the water that were just carved and chiseled in the earth. I'm seeing little shepherd boys. I mean, it's like I'm looking into a time machine portal. It's almost like pulling up your laptop and looking into a time machine from 5,000 years ago. I'm seeing little shepherd boys with the shepherding rod and the staff and walking and just in the garb, because I'm there. I'm this, privileged guy from America driving around for the first time in my life, looking at the African countryside off the grid. It's like nothing I'd ever seen before, except on, National Geographic Channel, some of these things. Gary, good to see you, my friend. So it was just utterly amazing. Why am I going into detail about my story? Well, it's because that's what I was doing. I was really checking in. And I was checking in to the outward world, and I was also, didn't realize, I was checking into my inner world. And I was checking in to reality. I was becoming aware. I was becoming mindful, okay? Mindfulness isn't this new agey, loosey-goosey thing. It's not that. It's just hitting pause and reflecting even in the moment. And so when I'm driving around, being driven around, and it's kind of bumpy. I mean, really, it was kind of like this, because I know you're dizzy right now. I was really dizzy, and the more driving we did, actually, I was starting to get kind of respiratory. I developed a cough, and I was wheezing, and it was a little. I was taking it for the team a little bit for the cause. But I'll tell you what, that first drive out there, I was checking in, I was becoming aware, and then I was getting download. It happened. The download was happening. All of my preparation, all of my study at the Starbucks, all of my trying to ask God, what do these, Maasai leaders need, and how do I relate to them, and how do I find that common ground? How do I honor their culture instead of being the privileged white guy from America that's going to come in and rescue them? I'm not going to rescue anybody, but I do want to do what I can to help. So I'm seeing these things, and it triggered the download. And maybe I'll share some of what, if some of you want to hear at a future time, as we're starting to get a little long here, and maybe I'll share with you some of the empowering messages that I got for some of these Maasai in Africa. I found out, I won't go into this, but I found out that there was a very unique, precious stone that is only mined and only found and only discovered right there in Tanzania. I found out a link to the culture that is private and precious only to people from Tanzania, and you better believe I used that, and you better believe it made an impact. And I can't wait to share that in a future Facebook Live. But anyway, for those of you that are still hanging around, which is apparently nobody right now from the ticker that I see, that's okay. Do the preparation, hit pause, learn to pause every day, build it into your life. And if you have to do some kind of a special project, some kind of a special journey, some kind of a special mission, do all the prep you can, but don't discount the power of being present in the moment and open to anything that you'll get, because that little shepherd boy, also some of the ladies that were, I'd never seen this before real life, but it was just like I'd seen in the magazines, ladies walking around with water on their head. They had the pitchers of water in their head. I said, I am back. I am here. I am really in Africa when I saw that, and I got all kinds of neat downloads. I found all kinds of cultural things that would connect to people. Even one of my favorite books came alive to me because I started seeing like mustard trees and mustard seeds and illustrations and shepherds, and I got many of the parables in my favorite book came alive to me because they weren't like artificially inserted into a white middle class environment of a Sunday school and a church. Instead, I was seeing these parables right there in Africa. And the Bible comes from Africa. The Bible comes from much of it from Egypt, and that was part of what I realized. So I got this 10,000-year-old download and perspective, and it was just absolutely amazing. And you better believe I used the little glimpses that I got to be able to add value to these Maasai warriors, these Maasai chiefs, and many of them, yes, were Maasai faith leaders over there. And here's the funny thing. I'll leave you with this. I thought that I was the only one that had this kind of technology, but you better believe when I started connecting and when I started resonating with these Maasai leaders, it was spooky because I realized that they are on a slingshot trajectory and their world is changing much for the better so quickly. And it scared me because when I started resonating with them and started really getting into a groove and connecting, a third of these Maasai chiefs off the grid did the same thing that you or I would do in the same situation. They started doing this. And I'm like, a couple of thoughts coming through my mind when I saw this. Number one, pardon me, but number one, I'm like, am I really resonating that well? And number two, what in the heck are people doing? Now, they weren't Apple iPhones. They were more Androids, but they had a third of these chiefs in my conference that I was helping out with. Our conference had video-enabled smartphones, and they were just taking pictures of what I was saying. They were recording that, and I'm thinking, number three, I was thinking, oh, God help this rich culture of Africa, of the community, of the tribes, of the love, of the connection. I mean, I don't want that to get swept away by all of this superficial, shallow technology the same way that it's happening to all of us here in the Western world. So it's a little sobering, but the good news is I reflected, and sooner or later, like a boomerang, it came back. And with a little help from upstairs, I was really able to resonate with people that I had, a few things in common with, a few right things in common with, and I used that to create some solid ground and build on what we had in common instead of the many differences between our backgrounds and our views and other things like that. I used the things we had in common to be able to build a bridge across the culture, and I know you can do the same, even if your cross culture is across town or across the railroad tracks. And many of you that are watching this, it might indeed be on the other side of the tracks. And here's how I mean this. It may not be the underprivileged side of the tracks or the less privileged side of the tracks. It may be the overprivileged side of the tracks. Many of my friends who are speakers, many of my friends who are winning awards right here in Wilmington, Delaware, they are influencing the privileged. They're crossing the train track and they're going into the more privileged areas, and they are speaking with a prophetic voice, and they are having great influence. So if that's you today, if you're watching this video, if you've actually come to this point in the video, good for you, because it's been 31 minutes. Oh my gosh. But good for you. And if you're saying, Nathan, I didn't grow up with the silver spoon. I didn't grow up with a fancy Ivy League degree. I didn't have the advantages that you had. That's great. I'm saying you have a voice. You go and influence somebody from right where you are, because your voice and your story and you yourself, you matter. Just like my friend John Griffin says, you matter. And that's my closing line today. Thanks for joining me. And if this made a difference for you, please leave a comment. If you're able to jump on with us at 3 o'clock p.m. to play a trial version of the virtual leadership game, we have a few slots available. Just private message me. I'll send you the link. Configure that link. Jump right in. And if you're local and you want to join us and you missed the first two Lead Well series at the Wilmington Public Library, and you don't want to miss out anymore, because we had some influencers at this last one. We had the place packed out on the last one. If you don't want to miss the next one, come on in, register September the 14th, second Thursday of the month, and then you'll be eligible to continue the learning if you're in the room. Some of the bonus programs that I have only for those who are in the room. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to my little commercials here at the end. Take care.